Welcome to the Grounded Path. Tools down, soul on. The podcast where we step away from the noise, the pressure, and the hustle and reconnect with what truly matters: your soul, your purpose, your peace. I'm Emma Muir, your alignment guide, here to share honest conversations, stories, and practical tools for men in construction and other high pressure industries who want to lead with heart, find balance, and live fully aligned. Each week, we'll explore how to put your tools down, quieten the mind, and turn your attention inward so you can show up grounded, clear, and ready to walk your path with strength and soul. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's get grounded together. And welcome. You've heard the intro. Welcome to the Grounded Approach. I'm going to introduce the title and I'll come back into it once we dial in. Once we breathe and ground in. Anger, clean versus leaky. And we're going to go through it. So join me. Let's ground in. As we do before we start any time together. Let's take a deep breath. Just feel your feet. If you can put your feet on the ground where you are, that would be amazing. And if not, you're driving along, running, I just want you to place your attention on the soles of your feet. And just in your head or out loud, whatever you're most comfortable with, say, I'm grounded. I am grounded. I am grounded. And then take a deep breath. I mean, if you're running, that might be a little bit more challenging, but, give it a crack. Take a deeper breath wherever you are. And just allow your body, your shoulders to drop. Drop into your body. Drop into this moment. Let go of what's happened before in your day and just leave what's coming next just while you're listening. Just be here, tools down, soul on. I really love saying that. It's so true in our life. Before I get started, to really touch on, we have to often put just the tools down, put the phone down, put the put the things down. And we'll talk about what we've got to put down when we're becoming aware of anger, when we're moving away from anger, and what that looks like. So I hope you're able to be present and to be here right now, because today, as I mentioned in the title before, we're talking about anger. What's in the toolbox today, Emma? What's on the table? I'm such a food person, so I often think about, placing things on the table in front of me. And so, what is on the table today? What are we talking about? Today we're talking about anger. And not the, I know most people immediately go to the loud and rah, that kind of anger. But it's not that kind of anger. It's not the loud, it's not the dramatic. What we're talking about today is the kind that quietly simmers under the surface. The kind that leaks into our leadership, conversations, relationships. And there is a really marked difference between clean anger and leaky anger. And I get it, that can be really confusing because, anger, it's the most accepted emotion that we experience, but it's also the most frowned upon if you get angry. But we're talking about, again, going back to it, we're talking about that anger that just sits under the surface, simmering away. Now, clean anger is grounded, is clear, is direct, and it's held in truth. Now, I go deeper into this in The Path to Peace, their ebook, that there'll be a link for in the show notes. So you can go there and grab your copy. And in chapter 4, this talks about it. And it talks about the beautiful nature of, the natural nature of anger. Because I will say this, whilst we're all trying to deny that we get angry, the reality is it is an emotion within us. It's a natural emotion within us. And so denying it is where it becomes leaky. Because leaky anger is unspoken, unprocessed. It either explodes or shuts everything down. And that is the kind of anger that, as a leader, in your own life, in your business, you need to become aware of. And you know what? You probably have known someone like this. Or maybe if you've decided to just drop in and be here now, you're sitting there thinking, actually, this could be me. I don't talk about my anger. I do shut it down. I don't process it. Clean anger does. And I always think about, when I think about leaky anger, I do love Star Wars, and I love Marvel and DC as well, all that kind of stuff. And I think of the Hulk. And, like the Hulk, he says it, how do you stay angry? Or how do you turn into the Hulk? And how do you get angry like that? And he says, I'm always a little angry. And it's just that little bit of anger just beneath the surface. It's almost like waiting. You can feel it waiting for a moment to explode. And your energy and the thoughts that go along with it. That's leaky anger. Or in a holding pattern. Really calm on the inside. And, like on that pendulum, swinging between withdrawal or complete outburst. Complete withdrawal, complete outburst. And there's no room for the clean anger in the middle. How's it going to show up? It can show up as blame, blaming others. When you feel angry, you blame them for how you're feeling. Avoidance, not wanting to have the conversation, not wanting to even admit that you're angry in some way. And, I know there's people in my life that are like this. And I often wonder, what do you do with all that frustration? Because it's not voiced. They don't say it to anyone. I just wonder what they do with it. Obviously not working with me, so I don't know. Sarcasm. Now, I do want to say I have a really intense sarcasm habit in my life, but it's not the passive-aggressive kind, which is what kind of sarcasm I'm talking about now. It's that backhanded, like I'm being funny. But energy doesn't lie, and you can tell when someone is being, serious. And my sarcasm, although it is incredibly dry, and all of my babes have said to me, Mum, you need to clean up the tone. You need to add some tone. You need to sound a bit funny, because I'm so dry with it, and often they will call me out on it. So I'm aware, becoming more aware. The other one is emotional shutdown. And that is that seething, that simmering under the surface, because you don't know how to share anger in the clean way, and perhaps trying to avoid an outburst. And in that, you think that this is the right way to go. You think emotional shutdown is absolutely the right way, that this is healthy, that I'm doing the right thing. But you're not expressing how you feel. You're holding back because perhaps you don't have the skill set, perhaps it's learned. So many different reasons why that you do. It could be that you don't trust yourself, and a lot of it has to do with that. If I let go, what happens? Now the other one is the passive aggressive, which, look, I'll be honest, I used to be known for. Honestly, not known for as in like in the community. I wasn't like poster child of passive aggressive, but I can look back and know myself and go, wow, I was so indirect. And rage, oh God, rage over small things. Have you seen that? Have you witnessed it? Have you witnessed something minor happening and yet just what comes out of it is rage? Now, I'll share a lot of experiences on this podcast, and I will absolutely share with you that many years ago, we're probably looking at 15, 16 years ago, when my children were really, really young, I would have moments of complete rage. They would, no one was harmed in my experience, but the yelling at them, I just lose it, absolutely lose it. I can make up I can give you a whole bunch of things, but the reality was I didn't know how to healthily share and cleanly share anger. I only knew how to express it or not express it. And so in the not expressing it, I'd be tipped over the edge by something ridiculous, and then I'd just lose my shit. This is something that I witnessed as a child. However, it was something that I did unconsciously. And so I had to unlearn that. I had to learn new ways of being. Because this kind of leaky anger that I've been sharing with you clouds your judgment. It damages trust. I'm blessed to have been able to have beautiful conversations with my children as they've gotten older, and I've seen some of the impacts of that behavior with them, and to have amazing conversations with them, and to be able to apologize and to say, I'm sorry. I'm learning, and I'm learning something different, and regardless of where it comes from, that's not how I need to behave anymore. It's not how I choose to behave. Because that kind of anger, that leaky anger, it blocks your ability to lead with clarity and presence. Now, you might have heard something that sounds really relatable, and I hope that you have, and that there's something in you now saying, okay, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be another way. And there is. There absolutely is. It definitely takes work, and it takes self-awareness. And these are two themes that I will continue to bring to you within this podcast, that the inner work, alignment, it's not like suddenly you go, oh, I'm aligned and I no longer feel angry. I know, that's not how it works. I will still tell you today, I have leaky moments. They're momentary, and often they don't leak out onto anyone else, but I do still have them. And so it means that I keep doing the work. I keep deepening my awareness. And, I've got a client from 5 years ago that still talks about the fact of how leaky he is. And also the gratitude that he feels because of the space that he moved into. Because here's what he's learned: communication. Leadership, it requires communication, like real, raw at times, clear communication. And whether you're gathering it or giving it, you can't lead effectively if you are leaking emotion into every interaction, into every conversation, into every situation. And it might be easy for you to spot. Quite often we can see in others what we don't necessarily want to see in ourselves. So you might have some people come to mind that you're like, oh wow, yeah, passive aggressive. Oh yeah, under the surface, like the Hulk. Oh yeah, they explode, or oh, they withdraw when they get mad, and all the things. And if you can see it in others and think, oh, that's outside of me, then I guarantee you it's in you as well. And that is challenging, to look within yourself, to see where it's coming up, and to make a decision to keep seeing that. Because as I said, self-awareness, and when you're wanting to not leak, this is where self-awareness, this is where self-trust comes in. Because as you move into becoming aware of how you feel, like being able to know how you feel at the time, not like 24 hours later, like, oh yeah, I was really angry about that. Like actually being able to name it at the time, and then powerfully choosing how you want to respond, not reacting. Because when your energy is clean and you can clearly communicate all this, then your leadership is really clear, and it absolutely changes everything. So I worked with a client who had grown, and I slightly mentioned him before, but he'd just grown his team from a couple, like maybe I think he was working with about 3 or 4 people, and he grew it to about 10. Yeah, I'd say he had about 10 people around him. Now, at first, and over the 12 months that we worked together, it grew, like his team grew. And at one point grew quite quickly. And I'm going to explain the shift and why that was able to happen for him. So at first, like when he was managing the small team, it felt incredibly easy for him. And, he did. He loved describing himself as being busy, and he loved to he also liked to say that he was a workaholic and that he needed to do it, and he, relaxing just really wasn't for him. And how he did relax was travel. He would travel, and that would give him a sense of distraction, and then he could just work from wherever he was. So, managing a small team was really easy. But when things didn't go well, and something went wrong, something didn't go to plan, something didn't happen as he had imagined in his mind, here's what he did. He'd shut down. And he described to me in being in a team meeting once, like having the crew together, and it was all online because he was traveling at the time, and his business allowed for that. So traveling around in a meeting, and one of the guys was letting him know that something hadn't quite worked, and I think he was saying, if I remember, that he needed more time, and this was a consistent thing. So he was describing a few situations where, he was getting news from his team that it hadn't gone to plan. And what he did say, though, was when they'd come up with a plan, he had less of a reaction to it. And on this occasion that he described to me and shared with me, they hadn't come up with a plan, and there was a number of reasons that they hadn't. However, in these situations, what my client did, he would shut down, like emotionally shut down, and he basically did a really quick check-in with the others, and then shut the meeting down. And so not everyone got to share where they were at, and it kind of left everyone a bit like, oh, okay. And so then he said he handed the meeting over to a couple of others just to share, but he went silent, didn't respond, didn't ask questions, didn't do anything. And then ended the meeting. It was abrupt. That's yes. As they all shared, but there was no kind of interaction between the team, which is what they would do when things were going well, when he could manage that. Ended the meeting, and then he would fire off. Now this is pretty standard. He would fire off a long, passive-aggressive email with detailed instructions. And then even if you got a response, he wouldn't answer it. He just avoided everyone for the rest of the day. Like, wouldn't answer anything, would go off in his angry little self. And as he described it later on in working together. Now, and eventually, so then things would get done, and eventually he would thank them for getting it done. But the thank you always came with a subtle reminder that his management, like his email, his instructions, had fixed the issue. Now, when he first shared all this with me, he fully believed he was doing the right thing, because in his mind, he was not saying anything bad to them. He was taking a pause by being silent, and then emailed them with very clear instructions. And over time, and as we worked together, and it only took a couple of sessions, I'll be honest. It was a couple of sessions where he'd shared this with me. And there was lots of ways that we did it. Every client is individual, and what I did for him may not necessarily do for you. So what I will share is this. What he started to see was there was the frustration that he wasn't naming, the feeling that he wasn't naming, and that resentment built up over time. And so the way he shut down conversations and instead of engaging with them, like, he could start to see these patterns. And then the greatest one was when he could see that the email was an emotional outburst. Just because he typed it didn't make it any less of an outburst. So what was he seeing? That he wasn't naming it, that he didn't really know how he was feeling, and what he perceived and thought was a good way of handling things was not him handling anything. And, what he came to at first was that it was his management style. It's my management style. I've got to learn. I've got to learn a new management style. And what he was asking was just to give him a list of things to do, and he would go off and do that. But the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, is that it was a self-leadership issue. And as we started deepening his self-awareness, everything shifted. He began pausing before reacting. Now, when I say pausing, he wasn't just shutting down. He was able to pause in a moment and ask better questions. So when he revisited, this same situation had come up again with somebody else as the team grew. There was a deadline that was going to be missed. And when he stopped and asked questions, he found out a whole bunch of information, that there was essentially a third-party issue. that was part of finalising this particular part of a project for another client. So once he understood that, one, they could look at their supplier, they could look at who they were working with and start to make better choices around it, because his team, they were terrified. I was terrified of saying, hey, actually, we've got someone better that could do this, because of those emails. So when he started to ask better questions, he realised he had a really competent and passionate team that were working around him, which were really similar values and similar qualities that he had himself. He was able to communicate his needs clearly. So what he thought was like a management issue of, I've got to manage their time and da-da-da, he recognised that actually once I started to ask better questions, I got clearer information and he could start to trust his team more and give less direction, apart from just what he understood really was that all he needed to do was just bring them back to the project, bring them back to their attention to what it is they were working on at that particular time and keep the focus there. So timelines and anything shifting out of that, like not meeting them, began to fade. He could also communicate and say and start to communicate his feelings. Well, look, it's a little frustrating hearing that. I wish I had known this information earlier. Perhaps we could have done something about it. What can we do differently next time? So his communication, everything started to change. And what he uncovered with himself is his curious nature, his true curious nature. And I actually believe that most people on the planet are inherently curious. So he started to lead with curiosity rather than control, which was huge. Now, when he started to sort of grow this awareness and his business, and he was getting into, up to the 10 team, like growing his team that much, he shared with me about a conversation with a team member where he would normally have just completely lost it. And but he said, this time I just paused and then decided and chose how I wanted to respond, because he could feel his frustration sitting there. He could feel that reactive nature. And in his words, it changed everything. It changed the conversation, changed the outcome. It changed everything. And what he was able to uncover was a deepening in the relationship. He found out some other things that were going on with his team member and some challenges that they were having, because he could have people work remotely. And this is well before remote. This is a long time ago. But he was... There were some internet challenges. I remember him sharing that with me. And so he was able to help with that. There were some tech issues, and so he was able to send over something, get them to organise another particular piece of tech that they needed, and no more issues like that. So his team dynamics improved and client loyalty grew because the communication with the team was so clear, and because the leader of the business was cleanly sharing their own frustrations, it led the team to do the same thing. And they honestly just exploded with referrals. His business grew exponentially within another 12 months after that. And, he can come back to that and he would talk about communication. But that's what happens when you stop leaking anger and start leading with it. Start leading with, being clear, being calm, and being clean with it. So I've shared with you the different ways, that my client did it, the different awarenesses, but I want to start with this today. Let's pop a tool in your toolbox. Gosh, I love that. It's such a foundational piece. It's an analogy I've used for a long time. Putting a tool in your toolbox. I've been collecting them for 25 years, so I've got lots of tools in my toolbox, and I want to deliver one to you now. So let's start with this. Let's start with naming the emotion. Because I'm not naming the emotion. It doesn't mean you have to fix it, and it doesn't mean you have to get it right. In fact, you're not going to get it right, and you're probably not going to be able to name the emotion, because if you've never done it in your life, like, how are you going to be good at this? So you just have to name it, because that's actually where real self-leadership begins. Just understanding what you're feeling at the time before you shut down or explode. So try this. Just take a deep breath in where you're at right now and ask yourself, what level of anger am I feeling? Now, use a scale of 1 to 10. I love 1 to 10. It's a really easy way to do it. So 1 being like none. I'm cool. I don't feel anything. There's nothing in my day that is... Because I want you to think back about your whole day. Just have a moment, and what level of anger am I feeling about my day? I know I asked you to leave it all behind and not pick it up, moving forward. But for now, let's just pick it up, the day that you've had so far, and what level of anger are you feeling? So 10 being, man, I could really hurt someone with my words, or the next person that comes along, look out. Be honest. No one else is hearing this. No one else, you don't have to tell anyone. If you want to, great, but if you want to have a conversation about it, even better. The more conversations we have around this, the better. And so if you are sort of 5 and above, then, or even if you're in a frustrated state, like in a low anger state, then ask yourself, what am I not understanding about this situation? Could be about someone else or about myself. So it could be like, the man that I was working with, leading his team. It could be because he got really frustrated at one point. He didn't understand why they weren't sharing with him some of the challenges. And when he, I'm not really understanding why you're not sharing those challenges. And he got an answer. So think about it in those terms. Like, what is it? You could be saying, well, I'm not really understanding why they didn't do X, Y, Z. And it can be a really great question to ask. It diffuses, it lets you come back down. But again, let's go back to being truthful, being honest with yourself. So asking yourself that question, what am I not understanding about this situation or about myself? And let the answer come. It could be, I can't understand why they would do that. Or I'm going to go ask this question. But whatever the answer is it that you need to ask someone else the question, or there's an answer that's come to you? And I absolutely invite you to let it guide your next move. Not the heat of the moment, not the reactive state. That clean, calm place where you have that answer of what you're not understanding and move from there. So in chapter 4, I talk in the path to peace, as I mentioned before, understanding your emotions is what allows you to have this really clean communication, within your relationships, within your leadership. So you can go in there and understand all of the, base emotions that I discuss in the book and share with you. And there's some really great practical ways to bring it into your life. Because the more self-awareness you build in your life, the clearer you become. And the clearer you are, the deeper you can connect. And I know you want that because you're here. So, tools down, soul on. I'll see you next time. Well, not see you. Hear me next time. Let's keep going on the grounded path. Thanks for joining me on the grounded path. tools down, soul on. If this episode brought you something valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need it. For more resources, coaching, or to connect with me, please visit www.emmamuir.com or hit the links in the episode description. Remember, peace starts within. Until next time, keep your tools down and your soul on. Stay grounded and enjoy the peace you're cultivating. Take care for now, Emma.